What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Time to go for my predictions for Game Week 2 in the Premier League. West Ham Chelsea starting off, London derby, East against West. Both sides horrific in Game Week 1. West Ham got absolutely smashed up by newly promoted Sunderland. Chelsea put in a really horrible performance against Crystal Palace, and we're really lucky that they didn't lose. I mean, we all know I don't rate Maresca. I do quite like Potter, even though he hasn't really done very well. And this is going to be a shock prediction, but I think West Ham are going to win 2-1. Now you might say, oh, you're just saying that because you hate Chelsea and you just want them to lose. And yeah, you might be right. That might be why I'm predicting this. But I just have a feeling West Ham United are going to beat Chelsea. Manchester City against Tottenham. Tough one to call because Tottenham typically do really well against Man City. Like even last season, they finished 17th. They won 4-0 at the Etihad. Obviously, Man City were also going through a slump, and James Maddison, who scored 2 goals that day, isn't available. But Thomas Frank, again, has a pretty decent record against Manchester City. This game could go either way. Man City were fantastic last week, so were Tottenham. Both of them won comfortably and kept clean sheets. But I think this one's going to end in a draw from 1-1 because, like I said, Tottenham do well against Manchester City. I feel like João Palhinha, who didn't play last week, is going to have a big role stopping Ryan Lisch-Cherki, Doku. You know, he's going to have a huge role, but he'll be fully rested. And I just think Tottenham are going to be a lot more solid defensively now than they were at any point under Ange Postecoglou. And Manchester City may struggle to break that down a little bit. Aït-Nouri, who is a fantastic player, but not very good as a 1v1 defender against Kudus, who is fantastic in 1v1 situations, an unbelievable dribbler, so hard to tackle, and I think he will have a very good game. Bournemouth against Wolves. Both these sides lost last week. Both of them conceded 4 goals. They both showed a lot of defensive frailties, but Bournemouth definitely showed more going forward. And Wolves were just so bad. I mean, to fair, Man City only had 4 shots on target and scored all 4 goals. But that just doesn't look very good on Jose Sarr because he could have done better with 3 of the goals, to be fair. I do think Bournemouth are going to win 3-2. It's going to be another very high-scoring game. Strand Larsen will probably score a brace, but I think Bournemouth will have enough firepower in their attack to get the job done at home. Brentford against Aston Villa. Villa drew 0-0 last week. Brentford lost 3-1 to Nottingham Forest, and they were absolutely horrific for the whole game. I think this game ends 3-1 as well. And it's to Aston Villa. Brentford are going to lose again. Keith Andrews completely out of his depth. Unai Emery, fantastic manager. Villa have just sold Jacob Ramsey, which is really sad. But Morgan Rogers is still there. And him and Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins always scores against Brentford, so he'll score again. I think Rogers will score. And I'm also going to say that Tyrone Mings will score from a corner against a set-piece coach. Burnley against Sunderland, the first meeting between 2 newly promoted teams this season. Sunderland got off to a flyer last week. Burnley lost 3-0. Now this game ended 0-0 last season with Wilson Isidore missing 2 penalties. And in that game last season, I had a bet on Sunderland to win and Wilson Isidore to score a goal. So I absolutely hate that man. Obviously Burnley were really good defensively last season, but Sunderland have added so much to their squad. Burnley have added some decent players too. It's going to be a cagey one, you know. I think both sides know they can't afford to lose this because if they do, especially for Burnley, you know, given that they're home team and they got battered last week. It's going to be a long road ahead. But I do think they will lose, and I've gone 1-0 Sunderland. You know, they're going to carry the momentum over. Burnley have almost had it slashed already with how badly they got beaten. Sunderland, complete opposite, you know, huge win. And they need to carry this on for as long as they can because they do have a very good start. They've got Brentford next week as well. If they can beat Burnley and Brentford and win 3 out of 3, they're already safe. Arsenal against Leeds. Now, like Sunderland, Leeds came up last season and have won their first game. They were fantastic against Everton, but unfortunately for them, they are now coming up against Arsenal, who are very, very good. And although Leeds were fantastic against Everton, Arsenal will provide a completely different test, and they're at home. And they need to make up for their poor performance at Old Trafford. They did win, and obviously that's great, but I think they all know their performance wasn't good enough. I think they will put that right here, and I've gone with a 5-1 Arsenal win. I'm sorry, Leeds, I just can't see how you get anything, and I think you will take a drubbing. Arsenal just have too many good players, and if they're going to win the title, they need to put in some really, really good performances in this early part of the season. I don't think a loss would be too bad for Leeds. I mean, they're not expected to win this, are they? You know, they don't need to get points away against top teams. They just need to be continuing to take points off the teams that will finish in mid-table or below, like they did last week. Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. This has become a bit of a grudge match, you know. Crystal Palace, for some reason, blamed Nottingham Forest for them not getting into Europa League, even though their chairman didn't read emails. How is that Nottingham Forest's fault? I don't know. But both sides have some mad off-the-pitch issues because for some reason, Espirito Santo has said that him and Marinakis don't really like each other. Marinakis is then surprised by that, obviously. So that could cause a lot of issues. Glasner's clearly very unhappy with Crystal Palace's business, and rightly so. He's won them the FA Cup, their only major honour in the club's history. He's the greatest ever manager. And they haven't backed him at all. Instead, they've sold their best player. Do you know what I mean? Like, what more can the guy do? How can you treat him like this? Crystal Palace at home aren't very good. Nottingham Forest away are very good. Both these sides are better away from home. And I've gone with the 2-1 Nottingham Forest win. I think they will take it. Marilla will score and Chris Wood will score. 2 Morgan Gibbs-White assists. For Crystal Palace, I'm going to say Mateta scores a penalty. Everton against Brighton. I think both sides will be disappointed with their Game Week 1 performance and results. You know, Brighton, I mean, when I saw Lewis Dunk was playing, I thought they were a bit finished. Like, why would you start them when you just signed 2 very good centre-backs? I don't know. Everton, again, going away to Leeds. It was going to be a tough game, but they performed horribly and they showed nothing. But they have just agreed a deal with Tyler Dibling, and that could be huge. I mean, it's not going to matter in this game because he obviously won't be signed in time. But for the future, it's definitely something they needed. It's obviously Everton's first game in their new stadium, but given how they performed last week, I don't know if they'll win, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw. Although I do think if there is a winner, it'll probably be Everton. And if Lewis Dunk is starting, I think Everton win comfortably. Fulham against Manchester United. Now, this game over the last few years has gone one way, especially at Craven Cottage, yeah? And that is Fulham dominating the match. Chance after chance, they don't take them. Man United hit them on the break a couple of times and win the game by a goal. And I think that's going to happen again. I've gone 2-1 Man United. They looked very good last week, to be fair. Cunha and Mbeumo, both of them looked very sharp. And especially for Mbeumo, you know, against his old team's rivals, he will be definitely hoping that he gets his first goal for Man United at Craven Cottage. I think he will, and I also think that... Who else will score? Oh, you know what? Delict will score from a corner or something. And for Fulham, I'm going to say that Iwobi will score. Finally, Newcastle against Liverpool. Another grudge match, you know. Alexander Isak, absolute prat. How can you just refuse to train and refuse to play for the club that pays you? What a clown, and I love that guy. And now I'm beginning to hate him. Newcastle did win the last fixture between these two sides, obviously, in the Carabao Cup final. A really good performance that day as well. But their league form against Liverpool is really bad. However, with it being under the lights Monday night at 8 PM, St James's Park is going to be rocking. That atmosphere is going to be so loud, and I think it will spur the Newcastle players over the line. You know, I think all of them are going to be angry at Liverpool, so it's not really their fault. You know, it's Isak's fault for just being a prat. But, you know, I mean, Liverpool don't even need Isak. They've got Ekitike, who is phenomenal. But Newcastle definitely have the ability to hurt Liverpool. You know, I said in my pre-season predictions that Liverpool defensively are not good. And I think against teams that are really good at pressing and really good on counters, they will really struggle against. And that fits Newcastle to a T, man. You know, Gordon, Elanga, Joel Linton, Tonali, Bruno, these players pressing you, running at you. It's a long day, you know, and with no right back, both Frimpong and Bradley are out. Who's going to play at right back? Gravenberch will probably have to play in there. And we saw last week that their midfield can't really cope without him. And against Joel Linton, Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali, you know, potentially Jacob Ramsey, who knows, he might make his debut. It's going to be a long day. So I've gone 3-1 Newcastle. I do want them to win just because I do really like Newcastle. Eddie Howe, my boy. And I think it would be funny if Isak was doing all this just for the team that he plays for to beat the team that he's dying to go to. Those are my predictions this week. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you soon for another video.